Hey, travelers, welcome. Nisan, Mosery, the traveling investor, and welcome to another edition of the Traveling Investor Live Q&A show, where we talk about how to master your mind, body, and wallet. Right? We're all born into our families, and we're born into our society, and we're born into our parents' financial and socioeconomic world. But what most people don't understand is that just because we're born into a specific family or a specific class or socioeconomic world, that doesn't mean that's where we have to end up. Being born poor is not your fault, but dying poor is. And the majority of people live life by default, and they accept the cards that they were dealt and offer no resistance to mediocrity. Here on the Traveling Investor Show, we talk about how to live life on your terms and create the life, finances, and relationships that you dream of. Join me, Nisan Mosery, your host, every week on the live Traveling Investor Show, where we demystify the art of mastering your mind, body, and wallet so that you can be at every softball game, every ballet dance, and go on vacation and tell your boss to go kiss your ass. And we always bring incredible guests to share their stories, to inspire, to motivate, to teach. And hopefully, well, not hopefully, our goal is to make sure that you, the traveler out there listening, wherever you are in the world, will connect and identify with the people on my show. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a past. Everyone has a present. But it's where we want to go and what we want to do in life that will determine what we see and what we're doing. And today's guest is no other than an incredible woman. She is the epitome of what I just talked about being born poor, about not playing the cards that you dealt, by grabbing the bulls by the horns and saying, hell no, I will not go quietly into that good night. So my guest today is Dwan Bent-Twyford, and I'm probably pronouncing your name wrong, and I apologize. And we just spoke for an hour together on her podcast. She's America's most sought-after real estate investor. And check this out. She started out as a broke single mom. She was fired from Denny's, who now has personally flipped over 200 properties and taught thousands of people how to become financially free. She was not willing to accept the cards that she was dealt. Dwan is affectionately known as the Queen of Short Sales and is considered to be the nation's #1 expert on short sales and foreclosures. She's written 3 bestsellers: Short Sale, Pre-Foreclosure Investing, and How to Sell a House When It's Worth Less Than the Mortgage. Her most recent New York Times bestseller was written with Steve Forbes, Successonomics. She's highly sought after and has been featured on Fox and Friends, MSNBC, Naomi's Good Morning, Colorado and Company, and many other TV, radio, podcasts, and print medias. Dwan also has a top-rated podcast, which I just had the honor of being on, called The Most Dwanderful Real Estate Podcast Ever. Currently, Dwan and her husband are rehabbing a town. How awesome is that? It's the craziest project to date in the business, dominated by men. Dwan has certainly made her mark. So without any further ado, I see you there. What's happening?
Hey, how are you, honey?
I'm good. Long time no speak.
I know. It's good to be back on your show again. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being here. You know, I like to have people who had an impact on me. And if you had an impact on me, I'm sure you had an impact on my listeners and people out there. And those are the people that I want to have, I want to bring back. So thank you so much for being here. I know you're super busy rehabbing a town. So
it's crazy.
So, you know, do me a favor. I know we'd spoken before, and some of my listeners may not have heard the show before. Share with us who you were back then, and what was that transition for you, right? That you know, opened your eyes.
So, you know, I want to tell you something. I love what you said. Being born poor is not your fault, but dying poor is. I wrote that down. I was like, wow, that is actually really profound because you can't help how you're born, but you can totally help how you die.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I don't know. I never thought of that before. I was raised like in a super middle class neighborhood, but I never really thought about that. It's like, you know what? If you die poor and broke and miserable and all that, it's really just your own fault.
It's especially with today's technology, you don't have to do real estate to make money, but we obviously we're in the real estate world, and that's what we're passionate about, and that's what we love. And but with today's technology, you can make, you could be a 15-year-old making $100,000 a month.
I know. Tell me
making
about
10 grand a month for a 15-year-old is life changing, right? So
it really is.
It's just a matter of how badly you want it, and how how much you think you're entitled to, I guess, right?
Yeah, because you can only make as much as you can imagine that you could make. And when I first started real estate investing, I mean, I was 30 years old, so it was 30 years ago, which I know it's shocking that I'm 60, but I am. But even back then, it was really hard for me to imagine I would ever be like, I wanted to be a millionaire, but to think about actually being one, it was like, wow, I don't know if I can be a millionaire or not. I mean, I guess I can. I mean, if I can't, anybody else can. But when it happened, it was like, wow, I'm a millionaire. Holy cow, how did that happen? Because it was not anything I ever aspired to be as a child. I was raised kind of in the country. My parents were from Tennessee. I grew up in Ohio, and we had like 10 acres, and we had a cow and a pig and chickens and a garden. And, and in the 70s, when I graduated high school, at that time in Dayton, Ohio, outskirts, everyone said, get married, have a baby, and get a job at the car factory. Everybody worked for General Motors and Ford. Everyone, like all my friends, got jobs at car factories. And that was the big goal, was get out of school, get married, have kids, work for a factory. And when you put in your 40 years, you retire, and then you do whatever. So I was really raised with that mindset. So my actual first job out of high school, I worked at a factory. Now, I had never actually been in a factory, and I did not really know, other than, I mean, I've heard people complain about the heat and this and that, but I've never actually been inside one, so I didn't know what to expect. So I got hired, funny enough, I got hired at a company that silk screens T-shirts. Okay. So you have a T-shirt with like a logo on it. So they hired me, and apparently I was a good silk screener. So I worked in this long line and these T-shirts, and I'm silk screening, but there's no air conditioning, which I did not know. You stay on concrete floors all day, and it's so freaking hot because this is June in Ohio in the Midwest, and I'm working in this factory, and I'm always covered in paint and dirt, and I'm sweating. And I was like, oh my God, why would my parents want me to do this till I'm 60? Like, why would they want that for me? I was I remember the first week thinking, why would they want this for me? Why would someone want me to do this for 40 years? I hated it after like a week.
That's crazy, huh?
I was just like, oh my God. But I also was raised with that work ethic. Like, you don't quit jobs. Once you commit, you gave them your word, you stay.
That's right.
And I remember about 6 weeks in, this manager walked on the floor and had this whole handful of papers in there, pink slips. Well, I'm really young. I'm really naive. I don't know. I've not had any real jobs. And I saw a couple people start crying. And I was like, hey, what's happening? And like, oh, they're giving out pink slips. So I was like, what does that mean? And he says, it means they're going to lay people off. I'm like, what does that mean? So, well, some people are going to lose their jobs today, and they're going to get laid off. Oh, and there are some people that are crying, and I'm just like, oh, Lord, please give me a pink slip today. Please, I can tell my dad I got laid off because I can't quit. And I was praying. And when they started coming down the line, they came to me, and I was just like, oh, please, please, please. And the guy hands me this slip, and it's Dwan, I know you've only been here a short time, but we have to lay some people off. We're starting with the newest people. And I was like, oh no, it's fine. And inside I was just like, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I was so happy. And it's so funny that how your perspective is different, because I remember there was a woman I worked with, and I don't know her name, I don't remember that, but I just remember she was so devastated, and she was bawling and crying. I was like, girl, you're out of this rat hole. Why would you be upset? And she just looked at me. She was about 40. She's like, but I have 3 kids, and this is how I pay for my bills and my family. And this is me at 18. And I'm like, oh, be glad you're out of this place. Go find a better job. And she was so devastated, and I was so excited. But now, when I came 40, I can understand her being so devastated, losing her job. And this is how she pays her bills and raises her kids. And it was like her worst day ever. And
That's
to me,
right.
it was like the best day of my entire life.
Right.
So I knew
Well,
right then, I was like, okay, I definitely can't work for this. That's not going to work. I'm definitely not doing factory work. Ohio's not for me. And I went to Florida. And I just had a bunch of stupid jobs in my 20s. You know, I started investing when I 30 because I got married, I had a baby when my daughter was 8 months old. My husband left. So I'm a single mom at 30 years old, having a husband. I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I met some people and they go, oh, we buy houses and we fix them up and we sell them. I was like, okay, that sounds like fun. I could do that. Because I thought rehabbing and decorating were the same thing.
right.
Which, by the way, they are not.
It's
But
not.
I thought, and I think being naive was my best asset because I thought, oh, I'm going to buy this house. I'm going to fix it up. I'll decorate it. It'll be beautiful. I'll sell it. It'll look like a magazine house. That's right up my alley. And so I very unknowingly bought a rehab right out of the gate without knowing how to rehab.
That's crazy, huh?
But
Sometimes
it was fun. I made $22,000 on it. I was working for myself. My daughter was with me. I didn't have a boss. And I thought, I've been missing this boat. Where's this boat been? And that's it. And now it's 30 years later, I'm still doing it.
that's fantastic. You know, a lot of people, you know, it's all about your, you know, I want to go to the beginning part of your story where you were 18 and you got laid off and that other woman was 40. Yes, it's devastating. And it's devastating to lose your job. And that fear comes over you when you have kids and whatnot, right? But it also depends on your perspective. Because like you were looking at it going, this is the greatest opportunity. All doors now are open. I'm not stuck here. And that woman could also have had that same perspective if she wanted to and say, wow, I'm so happy. Because if they would not have laid me off, I probably would have still been stuck here for another 20 years. So your perspective in life and your attitude in life will determine where you go in life.
It would. And you know, the thing is, if they hadn't laid me off, I honestly believe deep down I would have stayed there for a while. Just because of the way I was raised. Like my dad's like, you get a job, you give your word, you work hard. You know, there's no half days, like there's no nothing. And I just remember thinking, like, by the first month, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm only 18 years old. I don't want to live to be 60 if this is what I have to do to be 60. Because when you're young, you think 60 is like really old. And I know this woman, I don't know. I mean, maybe she was 40. I still thought she was old, but she was probably in her late 30s or 40s. But you know, her perspective was so different than mine because she has kids and she's crying and she's upset. But I'm like, I'm free. And thank God. But I hate to think if I hadn't gotten laid off, I wonder how long I would have stayed there.
That's right. And it's funny because a lot of times people look at entrepreneurship, they look at real estate, and they say, wow, that is so risky.
Oh,
being an entrepreneur, investing in real estate, you could lose your money. I look at people that, you know, like that woman or, you know, other people that work in mines and jobs or Denny's and whatnot. And that's a risk.
Yeah, to me, that is my dad and my stepmom. They worked all the way till they were 60. She worked at General Motors her whole life. My dad worked for the power company his whole life, and they retired at 60. But then when I got to be 60, I'm like, wow, you guys spent 40 years of your life screwing bolts and putting cars together. Like that was it.
Instead of going out and enjoying life.
And I get the insurance. Like I understand that. And I know that the 70s and 80s, there was quite a bit of that still. And, you know, they were like from the, you know, working there since like the 60s. They were doing that, you know, when they were in their 20s and in the 50s, like in the 50s. And so it's like, I get that is better than their parents. They went to like a, you know, the agricultural society to like, you know, the assembly line society. But it's like, man, I'm glad we're in the tech society.
That's right.
But I mean, I guess that's good for people like us because we're like, woohoo, we can do what we want, make all the money we want. But there's still a lot of people. I have a lot of people my age that have had the same job their whole life still.
Oh, absolutely. And they love it. Some people love it. Some people love it. They love, you know, I have friends that love what they do. You know, they know that they have their friends at work. They go, that, you know, they're helping people. They're doing this, right? They know they have that schedule and that schedule is awesome for them. Right.
Yeah.
For people like us, we take the schedule and we throw it out the window, and we're like, all right, I'm gonna. I feel like going on vacation tomorrow. I'm out of here.
That's
Bye.
right. That is right. And that is part of, because you said, I know you just some coaching and training. That is part of what you sort of have to teach people that, because I was raised in like a structured, get a job, have kids, and this is like do this is what everybody does. And then I'm not that way. I didn't raise my kids like that. So my kids are doing real estate, and they've got deals, and they travel all over the world. And I can't even imagine any of them working in a structured job. And I never raised them to think that way. They don't even like know what that means.
Yeah, when my oldest daughter was younger, my wife, I had my office at home, and the kids would run around, they'd mimic, and they'd be playing on the phone and talking. So one day my wife goes to my daughter, she goes, "So Emilia, you gonna do what daddy does when you grow up?" And she goes, "No, mommy, I'm an artist like you, but I'm gonna marry somebody who does what daddy does."
Out of the mouths, babes. That's so funny. That's so cute.
Loved it.
That's
right?
Cute.
So in your intro, you said you're renovating a town.
I have got to tell you, we started, I think I talked to you last year. So my husband's from the little town. It's called Clinton, Iowa. And it's right on the river. And it's one of those little towns that used to have like a really cute downtown. It's like 3 blocks away from the river, 3 blocks deep and like 3 blocks wide. And it used to be this little shopping mecca. And everyone came downtown. Everything was downtown. And then like with, change, out of town, they put a casino. And then out by the casino, they put a Walmart and Applebee's and out. And the little downtown just sort of like got vacated basically. So it looked almost a little ghost townish. And so we always go back to our high school reunions. Reunions are fun. And so we were back at one 5 years ago. And they had a meeting at some little pub or something that was downtown. And I remember being there and I was like, okay, where are all the people? There's like 2 restaurants. There's like nothing open down here. And so we're talking like, oh, they're trying to redo the downtown and vamp it up. And they're doing a re-beautification. And so I was like, oh, let's find out more what that means. Let's talk about that. Well, then it's all an opportunity zone. So, and I didn't really know a lot about opportunity zones 5 or 6 years ago. So basically, if you own the building for 10 years, you don't pay any capital gains. And then I find out there's all kinds of grants, like to do facades and windows and roofs and murals on the sides of the buildings. And I'm like, okay, tell me about that. It's like, it's all free. It's like all this grant money. I was like, okay, so we bought, our intention was just to buy like 2 buildings. But Bill and I are these 2 like sort of OCD people that do everything over the top. So we bought a building from one lady, and then she told her friend who called. She was like an 80-year-old woman. She told her friend who was like 80, who owned 3 buildings. She said, would you guys buy my 3 buildings? And we're like, sure. And then she told her friend, and literally over the course of the last couple of years, we have picked up 20.
Oh my goodness.
Just so we have some buildings on the main drag. On the street over, we have a garage and storage units. It's like a great big giant thing with that. And then down the street, we have another building that we made like an event center. So I don't know what happened. It's like I'm like, listen, Bill, we have to stop. Like we have to stop buying buildings. So we started off, we're going to buy 2 or 3, and then now we have 20 parcels of property.
Wow. And did you buy these with your own money or with investor money?
A little bit of both. Some we paid for. A couple of women that called that said, hey, so-and-so told me you bought a house, but Bill, would you buy mine? We're like, well, only if you'll finance it.
Oh.
So we got like 6 in a row where the women, they're like 78 years old. And all of them know each other their whole lives. We all want to move to Florida, but we all need monthly income. And I was like, well, if you'll finance 100% financing, and we'll pay this much interest. So we got like 6 of them financed. And the women just every month get their check. They're down in Florida. They're just living at large. They're like 82, 3 years old right now. And so I got a bunch of them that way.
Nice.
Just because, and it's interesting because all the people that own buildings know each other. So this one told this one, she told this one, they told that one. And like 8 of the little ladies all moved to Florida together.
Wow, that's
all
awesome.
their buildings, and these were not anything that were not for sale. They weren't listed. They were sitting there. Most of them had been vacant for a decade.
Wow.
They were just keeping them because their husbands owned them and their husbands all died and they didn't know what to do with them. So they're just sitting there.
That's great. That's great.
So that was amazing. And then, of course, we brought in some people to do like some stuff like you, some syndication. We brought some people in and said, hey, let's do this building and let's do this and let's do that. But since then, they've taken 2 of the old hotels down there and they're turning them into lofts. They're spending $10 million on one and $17 million on another one. And that's right downtown. It's like within the 3-block area. And they've opened up a restaurant and they put in a brewery. And we're just like, yes, just keep that stuff coming because everything just makes my buildings worth more money.
That's right. That's amazing.
So it's really exciting because we've never done anything like that. And these are things we're keeping like forever and, start the generational wealth and pass them to our kids and our grandkids and on and on and on and on. But restoring the buildings has been really fun. We've done a lot of rehabbing, but this is like historical restoration, which has been really fun. Kind of a pain in the ass, with the city to get
big pain in the ass.
Big pain in the butt for real. So if you ever want to do historical restoration, I'll give you a big tip. Restore it before you list it historically, because once you list it, the restoration process is so long and tedious. So I find if you just fix it and restore it and then register it, they can't say, oh, you can't do this and this and this because it's already done.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah.
Maybe that's a loophole tip, but after we discovered that, we're like, okay, we're going to do the next 2 buildings on our own. We'll bring them back. We'll make them look nice. We tore all the facades off and made it all look beautiful, but we did all that before we registered them.
Absolutely. Yeah, you deal with the city when it's historical. It's off by a millimeter. You got to do it all over again.
That's so true. I had no idea how just these city people. It's like, oh, you're the mayor of a city that's that big. And it's like, hot.
So how did you get over the fear? Because I know there must have been fear when you're going and you're starting to buy more properties in this one town and you're, for lack of a better phrase, you're kind of putting a lot of eggs, not all your eggs, a lot of eggs in one basket, right?
A lot. And Bill and I talked about that a lot. I was like, dude, I feel like we're getting like too invested because this town doesn't really seriously turn around. We have millions of dollars of our money in this one area. Like I feel like we have a lot of eggs in the basket. But I don't know. I think after I did my first deal, because I didn't really realize I was rehabbing. So I thought I was decorating and fixing it up and I was going to sell it. So I did not actually recognize the fact that I was rehabbing a property. And I had to go to Home Depot and take classes that I didn't know how to do stuff. So I think because I bought my first house, like being so naive about what I was doing, I didn't have a lot of fear that a lot of people have because I honestly didn't know what I was doing. So my stupidity, I think, was maybe one of my best things. Because once I rehabbed that house, I was like, well, I could do that again. But if I had known I had to go in and replace kitchens and cabinets and plumbing and electrical, I don't know that I would have done that.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't understand what I was doing. So I think sometimes being naive can be your best friend.
Sometimes
but
doing
now, we're 30 years later with these buildings, like we know what we're doing.
Right.
And so I don't know. It's weird to say, but we never had any fear about doing it.
Because you okay, so why wasn't there fear? Was it because you knew how to renovate? But renovating is one thing, but buying buildings in one area, like you said, right? We have millions of dollars in this one town. If it doesn't take off, right, we're screwed. So how did you know that this was maybe if I rephrase the question, how did you know that this was a good place to put a lot of your eggs?
Well, honestly, a lot of prayer, a lot of talking about it, a lot of looking at other buildings that people had fixed up and looking at the value of those buildings. And then we're like, well, at some point you just have to take a leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
And we go there a lot. And we happen to also have a lot of family. Bill has a lot of family there. So we have a lot of people on the ground if we need things. And so that was helpful too. But I don't know. We just talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. We bought one building and fixed it all up and opened a store. We actually opened an antique store in like a year before COVID. And it was so busy, and people were just like, "Oh my gosh, the downtown! We just need so much down here." And so then we did another building and put a little coffee shop in it, and it was packed. And I'm like, "Okay, everyone's dying for things to be down here, so let's just do that."
That's
And
it.
so I don't know. I guess when you get, I would like to think that after decades of investing, you have enough faith in yourself that your risk factor is higher.
Your
Just
risk
like you guys buy $9-10 million buildings, that's not something I don't think a lot of people would do first.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, if you just have this confidence about what you do, and you're like, my risk factor used to be a 1, but now my risk factor is a 10, and I'll jump off the cliff and see what happens.
Right. So what what I'm hearing is experience. You have a lot of experience in the industry that you were in, so it gave you the confidence to know what you were looking at.
Yeah.
But you also did your homework, right? Because you're saying, we spoke a lot about it. Probably when you spoke a lot about it, what you were talking about was, I saw that building the other day and they're doing this. And then I went into the other town next door and I saw that they were doing this. And what do you think? What about the numbers? Do you think we can get this? Well, the guy across the street was doing this. Did you see what they said? Oh, I heard, right? So that's doing your research.
That's your due diligence. We
That's
also
your due
went to
diligence.
some of the town city meetings where they're approving, this
Mhm.
and that. And we met some of the people that would be the control over getting our permits and things like that. So we like, hey, we want to take you out for like a super nice dinner. There's like one super fancy restaurant on the water. So we took people out. We talked with them. We said, what's your goal? What's your vision? What are you looking to happen in this town? And here's what we're thinking. So we actually took several months because we knew we were going to buy more than one. And once we bought the first one, we knew we wanted to buy more. So we wanted to meet the mayor. We wanted to meet the city administrator. We wanted to meet the people that do the permits. We wanted to find out basically like how invested are they into also revitalizing this downtown. And we're big thinkers. So like we're big thinkers. And so it's like, how much are we going to get flack if we do this and do this and do that? And we just spent a lot of time. And then we visited all the little towns around that had gone through the same process, but that were popping. And I was like, okay, these towns are popping. We know all the people here, and we got ourselves on one of the boards, the SMIGs, the Downtown Partnership, something. We got ourselves on the board. And then we're like, okay, that's it. We're going to buy everything that comes in our path. And then 20 buildings later, we were like, okay, maybe we should just stop. It's like, okay, I think we're good. We're good. We're going to stop right now. But even like right now, we're looking at another building because someone's like, hey, listen. And the thing is, they're like giving these buildings away for pennies. We bought our first building is 25,000 square feet and it was $35,000.
Wow.
Now I put 100 in it, but it's freaking beautiful. And it's got an antique mall in it and it's got a space rented out and it's producing crazy amounts of money. So there's
producing passive cash flow. Passive cash flow, which is a phenomenon in this world where you do something once and it just keeps paying you month after month after month.
Yes. And so that's kind of the thing too. So we did. Now I would not recommend a brand new person straight out of the gate go, hey, I'm going to go buy 10 buildings in town. but we did the due diligence, like you said. You guys check out the cap rates. You look at what's going on. You look at the rest of the neighborhood. Is this building going to be a good fit? Like the one you bought that's in Buckhead, it's kind of out of place where it's at, but you bring it up and make it that it's like the place everybody else wants to live in. And so that's kind of what we do. We make our places like the envy of the other buildings.
That's beautiful. That's exactly what you want, right? You want to attract.
That's what I want. So I want people to go like, oh, I could rent their space or their space, but their building's way cooler. I'll rent that space. So that's kind of our goal, is like to make every building like the envy of the other buildings.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. So it just drives more people to you. They know the quality, they know the brand, they know, who you guys are and what you offer, and they just that just attracts.
And quality is important because like a few of the buildings, they are old. A couple of them. One of them I found out was an old morgue. And I was like, I didn't know that. So down in the basement, there's all kinds of like stuff from bombing. And I was like, okay, a little bit, a little bit of creepy factor. But the building itself, when you tear all the crap off and all the stuff they added to the outside to make it look like cool in the 60s and 70s, you tear it all back to what it was. It's such a beautiful building.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So you just have to sometimes look past what it might look like and look at pictures of, and then we also got pictures of what every building used to look like.
Oh, beautiful.
So everything that we're doing, we're restoring it back to the original brick, the original awnings, the original, like, because now, everything that's old is new.
Mm-hmm.
And people go, oh, they used to do this back in the day, but then everything back then, it loops back. The styles loop back, belt bottoms loop back, everything loops back. So everything that was old is new again. So we're in the time where the things that people used to love, they love again.
Oh, absolutely. It's great.
And you know that, with your buildings and stuff too. Like, the things that went out of style are coming back now because people miss simpler times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's restoring old buildings and adding value, right? We talked about it, I think, on your show, right? It's what do we do to these properties? We add value. Not only do we add value to the property, but to the community within the property, right? If you're buying an apartment complex, you're adding value to the people that are living there. You give them a nice place to live. And when you're doing what you're doing, which is renovating an entire town and buying the assets and then fixing them up and bringing them back, to their former beauty, right? That's adding value to the neighborhood, to the city.
Yeah.
And that just sends ripples out everywhere.
It does. One of the neat things that just happened is they had 3 grants that became available for buildings to do murals, like, hand-done murals by artists. And we happen to own 3 of the buildings that are the right size.
Wow,
they have to be 3-story buildings. And they're these giant, like $75,000 murals. And so we're like, okay, so we applied for the grants and we got them. And they painted one of the buildings is already done. And I mean, people come from all around and get out and take pictures of it. And it's like, and while you're there, go inside and have some coffee.
Right. That's perfect. That's the trifecta, right?
Little things like that. Like, that. Like, even just like painting a building and putting murals and doing things like that. People love to take pictures and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So let's kind of bring it down a little bit for our listeners here. When tell us some things. A lot of the listeners out there, travelers, they want to get into real estate. They hear about fixing and flipping homes and whatnot. What are some of the things? What are some of the pitfalls that they should look out for?
Well, I think I always like to, when I'm working with a new person, I always still like people to start off wholesaling. Just wholesale a couple of houses, get a little paycheck, have a little bit of bank, have a little bit of a cushion for yourself, and don't just jump off the deep end and buy 10 buildings, because not everybody has the risk factor for things like that. And I don't know that I would have had it 15 years ago, but I certainly have it now. I mean, my hair is pink, so clearly I'm not too worried about things. But I think for anybody, I think people need to be realistic. Like, are you okay with going 3 months without a paycheck? Okay, you're going to freak out if you don't have a paycheck every Friday. Are you okay while a house is being worked on that you don't have like a set schedule or set hours or set paycheck? You don't have this, you don't have that. Where's the reality of where's your risk factor? And, do you need all these things? Insurance, 401k, do you need all that stuff to be able to feel good about what you're doing? And if you really are not like a risk factor kind of a person, I don't think real estate investing is for you.
That's a good
point.
Because
every deal we do, every deal you do, you had spent $9 million on the building. I mean, you do your numbers, you do everything, and then you hope and pray that it works out like that. Because it might not still, but you do enough due diligence to feel good about your decision. But not a lot of people would put their name on a $9 million building. That's a special class of people when you get up in those kind of numbers like that, because people are afraid and they're afraid of failure. But I just feel like if you don't take a risk, no risk, no reward. I like that basic no risk, no reward mindset.
That's right. That's right. I listened to an interview years and years ago with Trump. He's talking about real estate and investing and being an entrepreneur. And he says, why more people are not entrepreneurs? And he goes, what separates the regular entrepreneurs from the really successful entrepreneurs is the successful entrepreneurs can withhold and withstand the amount of stress that they go under doing real estate, doing business ventures, whatever it is, having these massive, hundreds of people coming at you from all different directions, things going wrong. The plumber didn't show up today, and now the whole team is screwed. Or what do? You're supposed to raise $2 million, and you only raised $1.5 million. What are you going to do? Right? That stress that we go under. What it does is it makes us diamonds, right? It makes us these like shiny things that we just glisten and glow.
The funny thing, not funny, but we I do a lot of workshops and a lot of seminars and stuff. So we bought buildings in 97 and 2000. Like we bought a lot of buildings, and then so my husband and I had made our 2020 up recent. So we had made a goal that we were gonna in 2020. We scheduled 25 speaking events. Okay, we'll go do this 25 speaking events. We make this much per event. We're gonna pay off these buildings, and then COVID hit. So now I've got COVID. Everything on my calendar for speaking is wiped off the calendar because nobody's doing events.
Right.
The buildings, Iowa was forced to close. Everybody was forced to close their businesses. I couldn't have my guys working and doing stuff. Like everything was shut down, and we're like, okay. We did not make a budget for 2 years of no working.
Right.
That was not in the budget. So most people would panic, maybe try and sell stuff, fire sale. We're like, no, we're just going to ride it out, because things will turn back around, and we just have to make it through the time period that we have to make it through. But I mean, COVID, it threw us into a major loop because we had all kinds of people working and contractors, and we had stuff happening. And the whole town was like shut down for a while. It's like, so sure. It really put a major wrench into my plans. I was like, well, all right, some of the buildings we have payments on, some we paid cash for, so we'll just have to make it work.
That's right. But a
lot of people would freak.
Yes, a lot of people would freak.
People would freak over something like that.
That's right. We had the rental moratorium and the eviction moratorium where people didn't have to pay rent, and you couldn't evict them for not paying rent. So as a landlord, you have to be creative. You have to figure out how to get people to pay. You have to figure out how to, how to keep that property alive. And there was a year and a half where I didn't sleep. That's where all this, all this stuff
I had that too. So that colored mine with pink. I was like, oh my God, my hair turned gray. But we have the same thing. We have, because some of our buildings had commercial on the first floor. Well, some of the businesses like the hair salon, the massage place, and the holistic place, they couldn't be open. So I got people that can't be open, and they still need to pay me the rent. And I've got people living on apartments, and we were very lucky that all of our tenants paid. And we just were really good and generous, and we didn't have anybody that didn't make their payments. I did have a few of the businesses that actually were not able to reopen, and I felt terrible because it's like, what are you going to do? That's
right. It's a crappy situation for everyone.
It really was. It was crappy for everybody. But now that that moratorium stuff is over, the banks are moving ahead at warp speed with foreclosures. So people are losing their houses so fast right now, it's shocking.
Where are you finding opportunities?
Well, right now we're in Denver. So actually, and I know you don't know this, so my husband just went through, he was diagnosed with this is another thing to add to all the fun. He was diagnosed with some super rare blood cancer that lives in your bone marrow. And so he just in March went through an entire bone marrow transplant.
Oh, wow.
So we're living in this apartment because it's 20 minutes from the hospital. We have to live down here until March.
Oh, wow.
So we can't really go out because he's got like this crazy immune system that just had a whole entire transplant to it. So everything I'm doing right now, I'm just doing right here local in Denver. And then I've got, all my people in Iowa. I got all my people back working and doing things. But we can't even go back to Iowa we left there in December. We can't even go back until like January.
Wow.
Because he can't travel. He can't go anywhere. He's got this crazy immune system with this bone marrow stem cell transplant. It's crazy. And it's like, okay, Lord. First we got COVID 20, then 21. Now this is 2022. It's like 2023 needs a turnaround.
Right. That's crazy. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But he's doing great. So
Awesome. Good to hear. Good to hear.
and we're living at a hotel / special housing. So that's what we were talking earlier. But there's a pool, there's a gym, there's a fire pit. And I'm like, okay, I can swim every day, I can work out every day. They clean my room twice a week. I don't have to do anything. And I was like, I'm not minding. I'm not hating it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I mean, it's good that you have those amenities, accessible to you when you're going through, stressful times. It's a great place to go and just kind of.
I would die without it because he can't, like, we can't go into stores yet. We can't go out. We can't see family. Like, we're literally like the people living in the bubble. I'm like, if I didn't have the pool and the weight room and the fire pit outside and the fact that there's a walking track, it's like, oh my God, I would be losing my mind right now.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
That's why I was asking about your amenities. It's like that pool saves my life. I get in that thing and swim every morning. It's like, saves me.
That's right. That's right. And that's what you need in a property, right? You need to have amenities, right? So that people can use it, so that you can create a great environment, so that people will talk about it.
Yep.
Marketing, get out there. More people want to live in your place, right?
That's true. We had a choice of 2 different places to stay. They call it special housing because it's like you have HVAC filters and there's all kinds of stuff for germs. There was 2 places, and I went to the first place and they had nothing. No pool, no weight room, no nothing.
Oh, wow.
Really. But they had like bigger space, but there was nothing outside of what's in your apartment. And here, because I mean, this is it. This is the whole place plus a bedroom. This is small. But I was like, okay, but they have a pool and a weight room and a laundry room, and they have a basketball court, and they have a place to run. So like, you know what? We're going to take the smaller place with more things to do because we're literally locked in for a year together. And the other place was bigger, but there was nothing to do outside the apartment.
Absolutely.
So sometimes the amenities are the thing that's the selling factor.
Wow. Absolutely. For sure. So you help, you teach, you coach people as well?
Yeah. So I do webinars and I do workshops. We usually do 1 or 2 live workshops a month. We speak for the real estate groups all around the country. And so I miss that because I haven't traveled for COVID, and now with Bill, so like I haven't traveled anywhere for 2 years. So I'm kind of like, oh my God, when did I get to travel again? Because I like to travel. Like, you're the traveling investor. It's like, oh, I am the stuck in my apartment investor right now. So I do that, and we do teach and coach and mentor people. But mostly I take newbies and that want to work in like the wholesaling or the rehabbing or rentals. And kind of that. I don't teach. I don't teach anyone about commercial buildings, but I might start because I have so many of them and so much experience now. I feel like I could successfully guide people through buying, buildings.
Sure.
But
Absolutely.
we own multi units, but I don't like say, hey, work with me and learn how to buy multi units, because that's like your niche. Everyone's kind of got their niche.
Right. But you teach on single families.
Yeah, so I'm big on single families. I'm really big on single family because I've had rentals now forever, and I like 3-bedroom, 2-bath little houses that can rent to a mom and her kids, and she raise her family there. And so I'm a big on giving someone a place to raise their kids. That's a nice place, where they don't have to buy it. They're not in an apartment with 1,000 people. And they have a yard and a pet.
Sure.
So that's kind of my thing. Because I was that broke single mom. And, I guess I still have a heart 30 years later for people to have a nice place to raise their kids if they can't afford to buy something.
Absolutely, man. I mean, what's the point of doing all this if we can't give back to our community, if we can't make the world a better place than than where we found it?
Yes. Amen. And I even, with all my houses, every single family house I do, I fence in the yard so that the kids can play like in a fenced area, not run out into the traffic. And let everybody have pets because kids like to have pets. And I do those little extra things. And I've had people that have rented for me for 10 years.
That's awesome.
And those people, when COVID comes along, they still pay their rent.
Right. Absolutely. Right. It's a
Because
different,
they've got like the nice place and they've got all the stuff and they don't want to get booted out. And they
and
love
they,
Miss Dwan because Miss Dwan's good to them.
that's right. And they understand that they don't want to risk their credit, that they don't want to, jeopardize anything. And, they just keep going keep doing what they're doing. And that's why we like to buy the B and A properties as
Yes.
well. It's just a different mindset, right?
It is. It
Different
is. It
demographic.
is.
Mhm.
And I run a lot to women that are on Section 8, government subsidized rent. And so, yeah, I'm big on, I really like the single family home market.
Awesome. Well, time flies when you're having a good time. I always love talking to you.
I love
Very
talking to you.
energetic.
We have
Tons
to
of
have
information.
drinks next time we're together.
Absolutely. And as I said in my intro, I hope that someone listens to you and can relate and is in that same situation that you were many, many years ago, and is trying to find hope, trying to find a path, trying to, looking for that vehicle to take them out of where they are and to make life better. Right.
Yes.
So, thank you for doing that. And thank you for being you and doing what you're doing out there. It's,
well, you too, Nisan. And he's on my podcast, the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. So look for him on my show too, because we had a great interview. That's our second interview. So
that's right. That's right. Awesome. Tell us how it's scrolling on the bottom over here, but tell everybody how they can find you.
Well, so my name's Dwan. So I made a new word. I took Dwan and wonderful and made Dwanderful. So Dwanderful anywhere. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, dwanderful.com is my website. So if you just type in Dwanderful, I'm literally everywhere.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure. And I look forward to grabbing a drink with you when you're able.
We have a house in Del Rey, and so I haven't been able to go there since everything got started with Bill. So I've not been down to Florida since the first of the year. So I'm just like waiting.
All right. Well,
I'm going to go spend this next winter in Florida.
I'm 6 minutes away from Florida.
And neighbors will go out on the avenue and we'll have a drink and I can be around people again.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. It's going to be awesome.
All right, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. All right, travelers. Thank you for being here. I'm Nisan Mosery, the traveling investor. Tune next week again, where we demystify the art of mastering your mind, body, and wallet. And I look forward to seeing you next week somewhere on Spaceship Earth. And do us a favor, go to YouTube, check out the Traveling Investor YouTube channel, like, subscribe, share, watch, get the word out, because my goal is to help 1 billion people gain back their time freedom. All right. And I need your help to get the word out. So go to YouTube, go on Facebook, go on all social media platforms, like, subscribe, share, do what you got to do. Let's get the word out that there is a better way to live life than just by default. I'm Nisan Mosery, the traveling investor. I'll see you next week somewhere on Spaceship Earth. And you can always go to iHeart, Spotify, and check us out on there. And I'll see you somewhere on Spaceship Earth next week. Take care, folks. Be well.